Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the Vault. Trust Christian, know nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. Always appreciate it. Once again, this is the Vault, episode 355, The Mortgage Myth. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay once again. We're going to just go over this episode. This is an episode that's actually done based off of just data in the past 24 hours that has come through. Clearly, it's air apparent where we are in the real estate market. Of course, there's TV propaganda, but we're going to talk about it from the perspective of trustees wanting to be engaged in a mortgage myth. This is an episode for everybody that is looking to take on a mortgage but is tentative in their personal name, and people that don't want to do it in their name but they would like to have a property. Appreciate Waco, Texas for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate Waco, Texas for tuning in live, listening to replay. So, this episode today where we saw once again in the public the gurus showing off. The gurus showing off saying that they're getting these mortgages on personal properties. This is where we are, ladies and gentlemen. You got the gurus in the public saying they're getting mortgages and they're saying that they're winning. They're saying that they're millionaires. They're saying that they're successful. Appreciate Carrollton, Ohio for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate Carrollton, Ohio for tuning in live, listening to replay. These people got mortgages. You don't hear the vault talking that. This is the difference between the public and the private. See, the public is advertising, go get a mortgage. The private is saying, stack your chips, get it in cash, retain your buying power. We got to bring this up because this is a real estate episode. And so many people are not playing real estate as a business. They're playing it as a personal matter. They're playing it as a personal matter. Oh, I got a second and third mortgage. I got a fourth mortgage. I got 3 different properties. They're all in my name, and I got a mortgage on them. This is what's being taught to the youth. And you wonder why a proper financial adequate education isn't being taught in the public school system. It has no room. Why? Because the same people that went through the system and said they came out and financially independent now are talking about having mortgages. Because what? They're your financial planner and he's certified? Oh, he's my accountant. He's got a mortgage. She's got a mortgage. Right. My lawyer. He has a mortgage. She has a mortgage. Wow. They all have mortgages. Is this wrong? We would not say that it's wrong. But would you say that being a debt slave is right? It's a debt. It's a contract for an extended period of time. People pay more in interest at times. This is not financial education. Excuse me, this is not a financial advice or legal advice. Just gotta throw that disclaimer out there. This isn't financial, legal advice or anything of that nature. Always gotta make those disclaimers. Some people say, why would you want to have a mortgage? Well, it seems like in the marketplace, they're advertising you go get a mortgage to get a property. And so now you say, okay. Well, let's look at some demographics for the people that are owning property nowadays. Because do they really own the property or do they have a mortgage? Most of these people don't own the property outright. They have a mortgage. Now, let's think about this. If you're a guru, you make 7 figures a year. Why would you have a mortgage for anything less than $1 million? Why would you have a mortgage? They're taking out second and third and fourth mortgages. And this is what's being advertised to the youth, to the so-called successful ones, the ones that are supposed to get the information and not continue and perpetuate a society where your parent may have a property, may not pay off the property, and now they're passing on a bill to you. If you don't maintain the property, then guess what? It's leaving you. They passed along a debt. Did you hear that? When the parent passes along a debt, they pass along a debt. They're passing along a non cash flowing asset. It's not cash flowing anything unless it's rented out, correct? Oh, well, here we go. Let's go ahead and get this argument out the way. Oh, well, I'm an Airbnb my personal residence. Is that what you're saying? You're saying you're a seven-figure earner and you're going to mortgage a property and rent it out via Airbnb, but you're a seven-figure earner. This is what the gurus are on the internet saying. How can you teach financial literacy or financial education and you're getting a mortgage? That means you can't afford the property. Do you hear that? And you go get a what's called a loan from the bank that adds interest to the loan. That's why it's a loan, because they add interest to it. Right. So where are we then? Can most people afford these properties? If they're making seven figures, you're supposed to be able to afford a property that is definitely less than $500,000. And still, even with that type of income, seven figures, why would you just not pay off anything that is less than your income a year annually within a less than 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 year period? Why wouldn't you just get rid of it? Where's your money going? It's going to either a normal bill or it's going to, which would be the actual property itself. But people want to stretch this process out over 30 years. Oh no, I'm not going to do it over 30 years. I'm going to do it over 15 years. What are some of the demographic headwinds that the society is facing in the West? Birth rates have plummeted in the West. Younger people are not having as many children in the West. When you have India that has a billion, when you have China that has a billion, that's what's going on. The birth rates in the West aren't that number. They're not in the billions in one country. So when we talk about the mortgage myth, how are we not going to talk about the demographic headwinds that are in front of us? When we see that, okay, if they're not having the children, what means the next generation after that? It means the population halves. It halves because they didn't have children or they had one. Whereas if you actually keep it above two, then you'll see a solid society continue to reproduce generation after generation and sustain itself. It's interesting to see this position. We actually had a conversation even today with someone that is living in an area that may not be extra feasible, where mortgages are under $100,000. You can get a house under $200,000, and it might be a big house. It might be a grand house. But then you go to other areas, that same house is costing you $500,000. In other areas, it could cost you more than that. This is what we're seeing. We're seeing people avoid a mortgage, a lot of the youth. A lot of the youth are saying, well, we don't want a mortgage. Do you see that demographic headwind once again? Not only are they not dealing with children, they're not also wanting to have a mortgage. The youth don't want mortgages. Do they get a mortgage? Maybe out of the fact that it's common colloquial knowledge to, hey, if you want to improve your credit score or if you want to show face and, have a bigger house or something that wouldn't be an apartment, sure, go get a mortgage. You get a mortgage for a house, right? Or do you get, oh, we're going to get a mortgage for a condo, but are you going to Airbnb a personal residence? This is the mortgage myth. Oh, that's a benefit. So now you have to run an additional business called Airbnb because you're so wealthy that you're going to make, if we calculated it out properly, the average room that a person can rent a room out in certain markets for $100, $150, $200 a night, and let's just say they did it at least 20 days each month. uh, you know, it's not to say that the income's not substantial, but if you're a seven-figure earner, it's probably not that substantial. It's icing on the cake. Sure, maybe it's shoe money, maybe it's not enough for, but maybe shoe money, maybe bag money, but not enough. I mean, this is the type of thought process that somebody that has seven figures is looking at. That like, okay, that's not a heavy part of the portfolio if you only have one condo or if you have one property that's rented out to a family. When you talk about that, things of that nature. People talk about, oh, I'm going to get these properties, so I'm going to go get a single family home and I'm going to rent it out to somebody that wants to rent it. Or what are you doing? Now you're in the real estate rental property business. That's a business, job or business, whatever you want to call it. It's something you have to work at. The mortgage myth. Somebody said, "Oh, I got to do something that I love." No, you got to do a labor of love. The mortgage myth. Is it a labor of love or is it cheating? Oh, I got around the fact that I got a property that I really cannot afford right now. And the younger people know that. The youth know that. They're fed up. They're like, okay, we've seen what it did to our parents' generation. They're tied down to one property. They don't travel. They didn't really travel. They only get to travel in their retirement. Truly travel in their retirement for how long, however long that lasts. Some people say, "Oh, I won't see my parents' 401k and Social Security, uh, uh, run out." Right, but when they pass, did they pass you along a mortgage? Yeah, because my parents, when they were in their 40s, they moved into a new property. So that means if they got a 30-year mortgage, it's going to take them till they about 70 years old to pay off the property. Oh, my parents moved into a new property at 50. It's going to take them till about 80. Well, oh, my parents moved into a new property at 60 and they got a mortgage, and you're ready to take on that liability as an heir. So there is a myth behind it. The youth does not want to endure that pain because they understand what a mortgage is. It's a death grip. It's what it's called, a death grip. It literally sucks the bone marrow out of your body. Everyone that has mortgages traditionally talk about the fact that they have to pay the mortgage. But if you don't have to pay the mortgage anymore, which is true home ownership, there's a different level of conversation because they only care about property tax. But this is where we are. We got the so-called gurus on the internet saying they're making all this money, but they got mortgages on properties though. They're making what? Hundreds of millions of dollars? These guys almost might say they might have made over $100 million and they still got a mortgage. You still think that's beneficial? You still think it's beneficial for them to have a mortgage in their name, but they're a big shot, right? Right. Right. They're the big shots taking out mortgages. Right. You're a big shot taking out a mortgage. I thought you had the money. You make let's just say you make $500,000 a year. You can pay off the crib within the house within 3 years. Even if you just paid half of it. But oh no, no. They're not. They're not living at that level of 500K. That's why they took out a mortgage. Because it's all the facade. It's all the charade. It's all the hype. It's the gloss. It's the glitz. It's the glamour. You think wealthy people, what they say, I'm building generational wealth. I'm building generational wealth. We're all building generational wealth. How the hell are you building generational wealth with a mortgage? Do you really think anybody that's wealthy has a mortgage? Really, they're wealthy and they have their personal residences at Airbnb and they're wealthy. So okay, let's go down to the rich because if you're rich, you're not wealthy, right? So the wealthy's really up there, but the rich, okay, you're rich now. Would you, if you ask yourself, would you have a mortgage if you're rich? Well, what's the benefit of not having it? Are you making $500,000 a year? Are you making $1 million a year? We talked to someone earlier about doing what you love. But this is how we know they're doing what they love. We asked them, do you enjoy the freedom of setting your own prices? Yes. Do you enjoy the freedom of picking and choosing who you work with? Yes. That's freedom. That's what you get when you have a successful business. You get freedom. Freedom's not free, it costs though. The greater level of freedom, the more it costs. The bigger the house, the more it costs. The more toys you want, the more it costs. But somehow, there's people that are promoting debt slavery. Go get a mortgage. It's okay. Are you the financial planner with a mortgage? Probably. Are you the accountant with a mortgage? Probably. The millennials aren't having it, and the baby boomers know it. What do you think they're doing with their property? Selling off. Hey, we got to get out of here, honey, before the market tanks again. We saw a tank in 2008, when it went down. And guess what? We're already seeing the reminiscence of the elderly people going through the situation we're going through right now. And I'm saying, well, we're about 65, 70, we're 60. Guess what? We don't know about the next 5 to 10 years. We're actually going to sell off if we can ASAP, take a cash windfall, add to our portfolio, and see if we can live out the next 20 on our own from 60 to 80. That's what they're looking to do. We already know the elderly generation, are they looking for their children to be their pensions? Top them up, kids? Whoa, whoa. Generation X going to do it. But what about the millennials? They're not trying to do it. They don't want to have to take care of their parents. They already feel the burden. They're not even trying to have kids. What makes you think they want to take care of their parents? Do you hear the demographic windfall? They don't want to take care of their parents. That's why they're not trying to have kids. They don't want to be a liability to somebody else. So they just rather avoid it. Go do surveys. Ask millennials, why don't they have kids? They'll be like, well, because kids cost money. The ones that don't have kids. The ones that do have kids might tell you, kids cost money. In today's day and age, it costs tons of money for kids in these major cities. So not only does having a child affect having a what? Mortgage. You think a kid doesn't cost about half the bill of the mortgage? An adequate education. Somebody said earlier, the difference, between Trust Christian and the rest of these podcasts out here on the internet is that you talk about the public education versus the private education. You're right. Because clearly we could see the public education says, what did the person say? Oh, they didn't teach us about taxes in school. They didn't teach us about interest. They didn't teach us about things that had to do with financial information. Exactly. For a reason. And so we're here. We're here about the mortgage myth. Oh wow, Trust Christian in the vault. What you saying? I can't get the upgraded crib. I can't get the upgraded this. I can't get the upgraded that. Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna go ahead and give you the private education, so you can get rid of the mortgage myth. The private education says the family deals in private family banking. Because the family deals in private family banking, they actually go within their family policies and they take out loans from there. And if they don't have the money, they don't get it. because they're practicing paying back their family banks. Because when they do have to pay anything, what are they doing? Using family money. That's the difference. It's really simple. Oh man, Judge Christian, you saying in the vote, Judge Christian in the vote, that means that I cannot get this. Well, let's just look at it. By the time you get to that point, you'll have more than enough. But what happens for people preparing for the downside? See, the mentors prepare for the downside just as much as they prepare for the upside. See, when people get mortgages, they say, well, this is how much the property's worth based off the comps in the area and what the last property sold or what you could possibly get. Okay, we know those numbers fluctuate, right? See, look at this. The millennials did not buy the line that the real estate market is going to go up for the next 30 years. So what? They didn't get in it. They're not getting in it. What do they want to own a property for? The millennials are trying to travel the world. They're trying to save the world. The millennials are not trying to be tied to mowing the lawn. You hear? The millennials are not trying to be tied to that. If they have children, they're going to have minimal. They already are showing in the numbers in the West overall. Why would they go encumber themselves with a major debt? Millennials are hurt off of credit card debt. Millennials are hurt off of student loan debt. They had to get the government to come out with a student forgiveness bill. That's how sorry this group is. The previous generations, they worked a second job. The previous generations, they didn't get the mortgages like that. They either paid for it cash or they didn't get it. They were renting. Well, we've seen a boom now with the metropolises. And we've seen also multifamily units boom. But we have seen a boom with the suburbs. Well, what's located in the suburbs with the houses? The banks. The banks give out the mortgages. This is where we are, ladies and gentlemen. Youth of today, they sold us a bag of goods. They told us we were going to be what were we going to be? What were you going to be with a mortgage? Oh, I'm going to look like I'm the cool kid on my block, but I don't even own these pair of shoes that I'm wearing. Right. I got this belt on, but my family, they bought it on a credit card that if the credit card gets repossessed, that means they're going to take this belt back from me. Oh, okay. So hold on. And what happens with that belt? You went to school with the belt on. You went to school with the shoes on. It's all on the credit card. But the credit card, they didn't make the payments. So now they're coming after them. So they just going to come and get all the property that the credit card bought. Right. They came and got what? They came and got the clothes, the belt, the shoes. How many payments can you miss? Well, you really can't miss any in the mortgage because if you do, supposedly it's going to go into foreclosure. And that means all the hard work, even if we had a 20-year loan or we had a 30-year loan, if we miss somewhere a month or two, no more than 3, we're going to lose the property. Even though we've made 18 payments or 500, 25 payments, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we made 300. It's more than 300 payments. We could lose it. Everything's down the drain. And good thing the internet's around because the millennials can detect BS. They think that's a bad deal. Why would they give up their freedom to mow lawn and have to replace a sink, a faucet, when they can just pay rent and be able to go on vacation? That's what the millennials want to do. They want to travel. They want to save the world. They don't want to be tied to a mortgage. They see what their parents are going through, trying to even sell their properties. They've seen their parents buy multiple properties. They've seen their families go through divorces and the property split. And seeing maybe one family member not even hold on to the property after the divorce. They've seen this. And they're not having it. It's a mortgage myth. Oh, you're supposed to live in this property because you're going to what? Because they say it's good for your credit or something like that. You think if you're a millionaire, do you really care about paying for a $250,000 property 1 year? Do you really care if you make $1 million a year, supposedly? This is how you know the guru's not making no money. That's how you know you're not making no money. I ain't want to hear that. Trust Christian involved. We don't see these so-called gurus at the country club. Oh, don't think we don't. Because guess what? The country club membership is 100 big ones. The country club membership is $100,000. That's one. How many country clubs are you a part of that you really have to put out $100,000? We're not talking about the crypto money here. We're not talking to crypto money. We're not talking that go get a damn mortgage stuff. When you're talking about getting a country club, you can't put a mortgage on a country club for $100,000. But they want to say they're making some money. Oh, I'm making $1 million. I'm making $500,000, but you don't have 100 somewhere stashed away, saved up, or whatever to go into a country club that can further your career financially. But they're getting mortgages on properties. This is a joke. If you see it, sniff it out. Detect them. They're jokes. They may not want to hear it because they're a part of what's called the problem. It's okay to call a snake, a rat, a rat. I got a mortgage. Really? So that means you don't have the cash. What disadvantage is it to have the property owned outright? Well, wealthy people know it is because they don't want to have a debt in their name. Do the rich people know that? The supposedly 500,000 to a millionaires plus? Do they know that? Do they know that they're not supposed to have a mortgage if you have that type of money? Because why do people in the lower class have the mortgages? Because they say that they can't afford them. They say, I can't afford the $300,000 home, but I'm making like 60,000, so I can get it out amortized in downtown. Downtown. 60-year mortgage. I got it paid off. 50-year mortgage. 30-year mortgage. Hopefully I don't ever miss a payment, because if I miss one, there is a possibility of a liability. This is where we are. 2021, the harsh and stark reality. Oh man, I'm tired of the central banking system. You want to know how you almost stop contributing to it? Maybe stop utilizing their hypothecated money to get a mortgage. Ooh, for a personal residence possibly. What's wrong with using it in a commercial sense? Commercial, we see the benefit in commercial. We see it as a business move because it's called commercial. But when we talk about from the personal residence perspective, we just ask people, you think wealthy people really have mortgages? Mortgages are for a group of people that cannot afford the property right now. And good thing we were trained properly with the mentors because they embedded it in our skulls that you do not take on a death liability. They instilled it in us from the beginning because you lose your freedom. Because you have to be a manager. But what happens when you rent? What's the benefits? You don't fix anything. You almost have to call somebody, which is good. Professionals. You're employing people in your city to do a job instead of you trying to be the handyman. Everybody wants to be a handyman. Not. The millennials don't want to be a handyman. That's why so many people sit around with their alarm going off in the background, and then they don't even know that the alarm's going off. Talking about, oh, I just became immune to the alarm going off in the background because the millennials really, and some people, and many people, don't want to maintain the property. Having your fire alarm go off is bad. It's a sign. It says beep, says change me, so you can actually be alerted if there's smoke when you're asleep. It's a modern invention. But so is that mortgage too. It's a modern invention that caters to people's, well, I don't have the money right now excuse. What if I'm getting a raw deal, Trust Christian in the vault? Look, everybody has, this is why it's not financial advice or legal advice. You have to make your own decisions. But are you looking at it as an investment or are you spending money? Let's look at it. Are you investing or are you spending money? Well, the mortgage supposedly is kind of like an investment. But then when we were sitting in front of some children the other day and we asked them, well, what is an investment? Something that pays you a return. How is the property paying a return in the interim unless you're Airbnb in it? Otherwise, it's a liability. It's taking money out your pocket. It's a liability. And it's actually a 30-year contract. Is it the 5-year contract? Is it the 2-year contract? Why don't most people do the 2-year contract since they have the ability to grow their wealth exponentially, especially if you're supposedly making over $500,000 to $1 million a year? Some people may say, "Oh, trust Christian Revolt. I tapped out on this conversation. I'm not making $500,000 or $1 million a year, so I tapped out on this conversation. I thought I was gonna get a mortgage, but you saying it's not even worth getting for those people. It's not worth them getting, and they getting it exactly." But you can see who's the real movers and shakers, who's the real asset holders, and who's the real liability holders. That's the only thing that we could see, is that we could see who's really holding assets on the books and who's holding liabilities. You think a mortgage is really an asset on the bank's books when they can actually discard a mortgage? When they can discard it, when they can write it off on the books, this is accounting, ladies and gentlemen. This is business 101, ladies and gentlemen. It's shrinkage. That's how it look. That's how it looks. Properties are almost depreciating assets. That's why you're able to write off depreciation when you look at these real estate properties and things of that nature. These banks know that. You think it's not a write off because the wood's getting old, the property's getting old. It has to take money just to even maintain the property, the grass, the fixtures, just to make sure that it's dusted properly, so it can be clean and not have mold in certain jurisdictions and things of that nature. People want to talk about, oh, we're going to do the real estate play. Okay, okay. We see the real estate play, but not the way everybody else sees it. And we're fine by that. Because over at the Vault, we're in the private sector. And the private sector is not just talking about real estate. We're talking about all different type of assets. It's the game of Monopoly. You got pieces on the board. You got different type of stations, all type of stuff. You got streets. You got all type of stuff. So we're not talking about one particular area, even though we're going to talk about these blockchain technologies or fintech or whatever. No, there's a diverse portfolio. But this real estate play has, we're not doom and gloom on the real estate market. There's no doom and gloom on anything. You can see what it is, or if you don't have the intuition or foresight to see, when people talk about investing, when you're an investor, you can see the future. Can you see the future on your own, not through somebody else's lenses? Can you sit there and see possibly the probability of where something's going? They think that they gonna mortgage out they jet since they making $500,000 to $1 million a year. They gonna mortgage out the jet. You can't mortgage out these assets. Is the jet an asset? If you wealthy, is a jet an asset? If you rich, is a jet an asset? How's it an asset? Unless you what? Renting it out. That's how. You gotta rent out the jet. Yeah, I don't want to hear the truth. We've had mentors that had jet companies tell us that it's a waste of money, even renting out the rich people, because rich people are particular. They want to ride in certain type of jets. They want to have certain carpet on the floor. You don't want to know the extremes that wealthy people go through once they get the jet. They make you accommodate them, and it's the jet company. That's where we are. But you gonna mortgage out the jet though, right? You mortgaged out the car. They just don't call it that. They call it a what? They call it a car note. Mortgage note, car note. Okay. Uh, House note. Okay. It's a note. Okay. Uh, the mortgage myth. You gonna mortgage out what? What else you gonna mortgage out? The youth, they understand. They already know what credit card debt look like. They already know what student loan debt looks like. They already know. The olders of the millennials, they already know what student loan debt looks like, and they're pissed off. That's a fact. That's why they trying to get into politics so they can get bills passed to actually say, well, it doesn't matter if you're in America. We need to have some debt wiped out for these students. Uh, what are we talking about here? The education is not free. Do you know that? How do you wipe out the debt? That means the education's free. They didn't have to pay it back. Do you hear this level of hypothecation? And they're mad because there's mortgages? They don't want mortgages because they're in student loan debt and they need to get from up under it so they can go get a mortgage because they think the student loan debt's affecting their credit. Oh man, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get no loan. I don't even know if I make enough money. And I got student loan debt. Oh, but hold on. The ones that got student loan debt, guess what they're doing? They're getting mortgages too. They got student loan debt. Y'all don't want to hear the doctors and lawyers. Oh, these guys got $100,000 in student loan debt and they got a mortgage. I thought they were making a lot of money because I wanted to go to school to be a doctor. We sat in front of some kids the other day. I'm trying to be a doctor. So you're okay with being in at least $250,000 to $500,000 in debt? That used to be a prized possession field to go into. It's not anymore. You ask the average millennial, hey, what are you going to do with your life? You don't hear them say they're going to be doctors. The average millennial. You don't even see half of them wanting to go into those type of professions. I'm not trying to be a doctor. That's 8 years of school. Why would I go take on $200,000, $300,000 worth of debt? Why would I go do that? That makes no sense. And then I'm going to come out and I'm going to be, subject to lawsuit and malpractice. If you actually talk to a doctor or a lawyer in those spaces, they'll tell you that you could be subject to malpractice lawsuit, especially if you have a quality firm and you're actually working with big time clients. They still might sue you. They went and interviewed the lawyers before they went in there. They interviewed the accountants before they went in there. They interviewed the people that were doing it. Like, this doesn't look good. I'm going to just go settle to be an engineer. I'm going to do some computer engineering, some hardware engineering, software engineering. We can make about 60 to 80K plus. You hear that? You hear that? Are the communications majors doing that? Are the marketing majors doing that? Oh, here we go. Guess what? The marketing majors, this is how they made over 60 to 80K. Because guess what? You were not making more than an architect as a marketing degree. Are you joking? A marketing degree. What, you want to go Ivy League? You were in marketing. You went to the marketing department. You became chief marketing officer. Marketing. Guess where these guys are at now? They are on the internet selling sales funnels. They're on the internet showing you how to market through these social platforms. But they got a mortgage. You hear that? Let's say it one more time. They went to school. They got the marketing degree. They're sitting on the internet saying that this is a gold mine. Selling what? Marketing courses. How many marketing courses could it possibly be that are really out there to market on the internet? Well, there's so many different ways. Right, but all their prices are not the same. What do you think is selling for the most on the internet? Marketing and advertising. So that's where the marketers are at. Oh, we went to the internet. They didn't want to work a job. The older millennials didn't want to work a job. Why? Because they had 20 to 60 to 80 to $100,000 worth of student loans. So they were like, I got to get rid of the student loan debt, which they still didn't pay off. You think they did? They didn't. You think if they made 100,000, they would pay off a sizable amount of the student loan? No, they're going down to Tulum, Mexico. They're going down to Costa Rica. They're kicking the can down the road. They're not paying the student loan debt. Ask most of the millennials, hey, you trying to pay back your student loan debt? What did we just tell you? They made sure they infiltrated the government and said we need to pass a bill so we don't have to pay for it. That's how slick they are. They're a witty group. But how witty are they about long-term thinking? The mortgage myth? They have enough long-term thinking to know they do not want a mortgage. They want to do this rent to share mindset. They like the Uber mentality. Everybody wants to share this. You'll share your house. You'll share your partner. You'll share everything. Your car. You don't need a car. Why do you need a car? We don't need ownership. We need rental. Take a mortgage. Because that's what it is. You're a tenant. Oh, you know, I did think about that. Why would I really act like I'm owning something? So I'm going to just go get a share, a rent a share. And that's how they're going to move. And some people may say, oh, I'm going to get in front of that and I'm really going to do that. Really? You're the property manager. You're in the real estate business. What happens when the population halves? What happens when it's in half of an area because the millennials didn't have children? You're the investor. Hey, I'll get out, boy, but I'll deal with that when it comes. Right. So people at the vault, they already know. We're not even dealing with that. Appreciate Jersey for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate Jersey for tuning in live, listening to replay. Appreciate Mississippi for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate Mississippi for tuning in live, listening to replay. Feel free to type into the chat if you want to get a consultation or reach out about Trustee Training. Christian@trustchristian.com. Feel free to reach out, Christian@trustchristian.com. This is the mortgage myth. This is about the fact, not just about the millennials. The baby boomers are selling off their single family homes because their children don't want them. That's why. What are their children doing? Their children have children. Their children have children. Their children are knowing that they're going to have to take care of their previous generation if they don't have proper savings. Pensions, all those things. Do the millennials have them? No. So they already see a financial headwind in front of them. They say, okay, well, I guess I won't have a pension, so I'm going to live my best life right now. Uh, that's the mentality, right? The mass. But what about the ones that's wealthy? The wealthy ones, we over here like, look, no debt. You don't do those. That's a sin. We don't do those. The gurus on the internet, they got the mortgages. They broke the code that the mentors told us not to do. They say you stay debt free so you can actually be free. You don't become a debt slave. That's what it's called. The mentors trained us. They told us the words. They told us what we're doing. They told us that you have to live this way. And this is why all of them are multimillionaires. They don't owe anybody anything, and they're multimillionaires. Why? Because they understand compound interest. They understand purchasing power. People are talking about what's that word? Inflation, 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 inflation. Oh, all we're going to do is talk about inflation because we're going to talk about that because they never stop talking about inflation. When did they ever stop talking about it? But all of a sudden, you're talking about it right now, right? Inflation, 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 right? Is it over for a group? It's over for the ones that will not get this episode. I promise you that. They have no chance. Why? Because think about their parents. Ask them and ask their parents and ask your parents. Did they pay off their mortgage before they passed? And you think about this. Did the grandparents do that? See, we're talking about the ones that are not wealthy. Wealthy, of course, they had the property. That's why the younger family grew up in the family property. It didn't have a mortgage. It was paid off from the previous generation. But what happens when you're in this generation right now? Are you supposed to take off a mortgage or are you supposed to pass along a property paid off? Well, how many people really pay off their property? You have to look at the masses and see what's going on. Look at them. Did they pay off one property? First of all, how do you get a second mortgage if you didn't pay off the first property? Because they're utilizing fractional reserve banking. That's how. Do they know that? It's fractional reserve banking. It's based off of arbitrary debt calculation. They're okay with that. They're okay with their life being dictated through an interest rate. Because they're not going to do business with people if the interest rate's not right. So they're actually okay with someone charging them points on the money that they're having to what they call spend or what they call what? Is it an investment? Someone's charging you points on the payment. They don't understand that. They think they do. Oh, I got a finance degree. Trust Christian and Vault. I got a marketing degree. Really? So, uh, Are you talking about net worth? Because net worth is dealing with the balance sheet of assets versus liability. Now, you'll see a lot of these guys and gals say that they're going to compete on cash flow. Well, I have cash flow to cover debt service. Well, guess what? Wealthy, which they say we're talking about, oh, we're going generational wealth, generational wealth. We're the gurus on the internet. We're taking out what? Mortgages? We're the multimillionaires. We could take you from zero to hero. We could take you from zero to six figures in less than a year. Are you think it's that easy, right? Okay, so it's that easy, right? It's not. It's a major myth. It's mythical. But so many are not going to get it. And it's okay. You got to be comfortable with staying down before you get up. And what do we mean by that? We mean that you got to save. You got some countries, they save almost 40% of their income. You, you got to save, ladies and gentlemen. The millennials, they don't want to hear that because then that means, yeah, they may not get a mortgage, but that means also they may not go on all those vacations. They may not travel as freely. They may not spend money on their comfortable clothes. They may not go spend more money on comfort clothes and reliving their pastime as children. Buying video games and living their childhood out with their children again. That's what the millennials want to do. They want to live out their childhood with their children. They want to live out their children's childhood with their children. They really want to go back and do that. And it's unfortunate because that's what many of them are doing that have kids. They're reliving their childhood through their children. Oh, we're going to dress this way. Oh, we're going to go to the theme park. Oh, yeah, they went on vacation, remember? Right, they did all of that. And guess what? Let's look at those parents that are at that retirement age. Do they have the pensions? Yes. Are they going to get Social Security? Yes. Well, let's ask the millennials. Hey, millennial, do you think you're going to get Social Security? No. Ask them. Well, they laugh about it. It's hard to hear. It's hard to hear. That's why so many of them want to be entrepreneurs because they instinctually know, okay, this fixed income is not going to work. That's what the millennials know. Fixed income don't work. Because guess what? Our parents, you think they're not going to come to you and ask you to top them up? You think they're not going to ask you for a room? You think they're not going to ask you for some type of medical expense if they don't have the capital? So the millennials, they kind of have like foresight to see, like, they're investors. They're trying to invest in themselves, really. And they say, okay, well, if I'm investing in myself, I got to invest in myself, maybe even my own business, because I got to have an extra amount of income to take care of this older person, especially if it's my mom or my dad, right? People think about this. They may not say it, but they think about it. They think about it. And most people are going to do the kind-hearted thing and take them in. Or you can just hear the riff that goes through the family. And this is where we are with the mortgage myth. Could the market come down in the next 20 or 30 years? You don't want to know the truth. It's not that the market's going to come down. The millennials, where are they buying property? It's not that they're not buying property. Even if they're Airbnb in it, they don't really want, the majority don't want to own property. The majority don't own property. They got mortgages. They don't own it in cash. So are their parents passing along a property that they own or they have a mortgage on? Right. That's why most people just won't end up doing what their parents are doing because they don't want to have the mortgage like their parents. That's why. And that's where it ends. We appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Feel free to reach out, Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, feel free to reach out, Christian at trustchristian.com. Consultations, Trustee Training. Look forward to hearing from you. Peace. Enjoy.